the harm is in real time. You'll get a text message from your VIP host telling you, hey, I just put a free bet in your account. Why don't you jump on and use it? Or, hey, if you deposit $10,000 in the next 72 hours, I'll give you a 20% match. If you go to a Philly pretzel and you get 200 pretzels and you get sick and throw up, you're not going to do the same thing the next day. The issue with a casino is that if you go in and make 200 bets and you're sick to your stomach the next day that you did it, and you want to take a rest, you're not able to do that. VIP host is going to send you a text message saying, hey, I just put it free $5,000 in your account, 1-800-GAMBLER. The problem with that is no one's calling that number until things have gotten so bad.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the One Day at a Time Gambling Addiction Podcast. Today is special because we're in a brand new studio. We're here to deliver a really cool talk on, what are we talking about today, Matt?
Predatory gambling.
Predatory gambling. So today's guest is Matthew Litt. He's a lawyer in the New York, New Jersey area who's represented a lot of people who've taken legal action against the gambling industry. So we're talking the FanDuels. We're talking lots of other casinos, and maybe I should just let you say it so I don't butcher it. But Matt, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the drive, man. And I know we've been looking to get like a formal interview down for quite a while now because we did a couple. I took my cell phone up to Matt's office and I recorded him on a little tripod once. I made him walk outside. It was a very cool establishing scene. I'll toss it in there at the end because it was pretty funny. But we haven't sat down and had like a full-on conversation in quite a while. So I'm excited for today.
Me too. I had forgotten about that we did that. Man, that must have been a year or more ago. And you and I have had so many conversations offline. It's really nice to finally get to sit down and have one in front of the camera and hopefully, help some people.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, diving into it, what would you say, like elevator pitch? What do you do on a daily basis? What's your mission? Yeah.
So my mission is to remedy and prevent harm that comes from predatory gambling practices of casinos.
Predatory gambling, like how do you define that? What is that?
So I define predatory gambling as when a casino knows or has a reason to know that one of their consumers is addicted or has raised red flags that they might be addicted. And instead of cutting them off, incentivizes them to continue and grow that addiction.
Interesting. So, I mean, I watched Suits and I was going to go to law school. So I feel like I'm basically a lawyer at this point as well. So this is going to be a nice legal conversation between the two of us. But out of all the possible subject areas that you could have chose to represent people in, murders, we could have even taken it completely the other side and say Wall Street, which, some would say worse than murderers. So why'd you end up representing gambling clients?
I wasn't looking for a cause. So when I started this back in 2018, 2019, 2020, I live in New Jersey, which is where this scourge started. And I was seeing all of the advertisements for casinos. My state was the first to be inundated with it. And I didn't like what I saw. And I had a background in consumer protection. And I thought, okay, I'll approach this like any other consumer protection issue. But as I dug deeper into it, I realized this was not just a consumer protection issue. This was an absolute public health crisis. And there was, at that time, in my opinion, no one doing anything about it. And I felt like as a lawyer, I could, if not stop what I saw as predatory practices, at least slow things down a little bit. And that's what I did. So I started with it was in 2021, I wrote a letter. I didn't even have a client. I just wrote a letter to all the New Jersey online casinos. And I told them that I thought what they were doing was in violation of the law and to cut it out. And it didn't stop them, but I'd like to believe it slowed things down a little bit.
So you sent them a message. You were like, hey, I'm on my way.
I guess I did. And again, I don't know that I was even sure what I was doing at that point. I just felt like something needed to be done. No one was doing it. And as an attorney, I could maybe help a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, over the course of the conversation today, I'm going to want to find out, what have been the most interesting cases that you've adjudicated. Adjudicated the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I broke that one out. The cases you've adjudicated and different things that have popped up that maybe what's the pushback been from casinos. But I think that maybe just to start, has there been a clear area of focus in your work, like of the predatory practices, which has been the most apparent in your work?
Yeah. And again, completely organic. I wasn't focusing on this to start with, but VIP programs and VIP hosts. It became very clear to me over the course of, I've spoken with probably hundreds of addicted gamblers and their families who either I've been able to help or who've asked for my help. And through the course of that, gone through their stories. And almost every single one had their addiction either started, sustained, or grown by a VIP host and the VIP incentives that came from a casino.
I remember watching, I think it's called Vegas, with Josh Duhamel and whatever the woman's name was. Her name's Sam in the show. And in the show, the woman is a casino VIP host. And when people go to that casino that they work at in Vegas, she's the one that greets them at the door. She gives them credits, tickets to things, like treats them as if they're royalty, but she's getting paid a percentage on whatever they lose. Is that what it's like a casino VIP host today? Sort of.
And there's a great book on what you're talking about, the brick and mortar VIP host, a book I just read called Whale Hunt in the Desert. I think it's an older book, but it's really interesting about hunting for, what they call whales in Las Vegas. I don't want to minimize the damage that type of activity can do. The problem is that with online gambling, VIP hosts and VIP perks have been extended to so many more people than it used to be in Vegas or Atlantic City when we were talking about brick and mortar. And it's so much more dangerous because, and again, I don't want to trivialize the brick and mortar VIP host because that's an issue as well. But back in those days, you actually had to get in a car and make the decision to drive to Las Vegas or drive to Atlantic City. You had to take steps in between which you had a chance to maybe think about what you were doing. The problem with VIP hosts and VIP programs now is that the communication is in real time. The harm is in real time. You'll get a text message from your VIP host telling you, hey, I just put a free bet in your account. Why don't you jump on and use it? Or, hey, if you deposit $10,000 in the next 72 hours, I'll give you a 20% match. All of this has been being done in real time as opposed to, hey, if you fly to Las Vegas next weekend, we'll comp you dinner in a room, which allows at least a little bit of time to think through what you're doing. With what's going on today with VIP hosts, there, in my opinion, very intentionally, is no time to think it through.
Interesting. So I guess it begs the question, has the definition of a whale changed for these casinos?
I think it has. I think the definition of a whale has changed, number one, in terms of how much someone is depositing and losing. It's also expanded. Just the quantity of what they would call whales, it's expanded exponentially. There's also an issue with the way that creditworthiness is viewed by the casinos. So in the old days, if you're like you're saying a whale and you wanted to play with, I'll make up a number, let's say $50,000. You don't drive to Las Vegas or fly to Las Vegas with a sack of $50,000. You go to the casino and they'll give you credit, but they wouldn't give you credit unless they ran a pretty substantial credit check on you. Because if you didn't make good on your debt, they're the ones holding the bag. Nowadays, someone can be considered a whale because even if they're not liquid, so let's say they don't have $50,000 liquid, they might be liquidating a 401k. They might be stealing from their employer. They might be taking a second mortgage on their house. Or maybe they're taking 33% APR loans off their credit cards. And the casinos don't have to care because they're not responsible for it. Once it's up to the gambler to go out and find that money. And once it's processed, once it's going through the payment process, or once it's gone through the bank, the casinos wash their hands of it. It's not their problem anymore. They're getting paid.
Yeah. Because I guess there's more intermediaries now. Like in the thing that you described, someone would have to go to the physical building, they'd go to the cashier's desk and they'd exchange credit for chips. Whereas now they're like, oh, look, you have money in your account because American Express approved this transaction. Like, I love that. The number of people that I've talked to that are like my age that have had casino VIP hosts is incredible. And when I think of a casino VIP, I'm thinking of the guy going to the high roller room, playing like $30,000 hands of blackjack or baccarat. But now we're talking about John, who's got $120,000 a year job, who spends $4,000 a week on FanDuel. Well, he's a VIP too now. Like, are there tiers to it, or is this just like, hey, you spend a lot of money, you're a VIP now, we love you?
There are tiers to it, but once you're assigned a VIP host, it's that VIP host's job to extract as much money from you as possible. So it doesn't matter to them, you know, what the spend is. But you're right, the definition of what a whale is has expanded exponentially.
Wow.
And your experience is consistent with what mine has been. You know, I have a lot of clients who've been in the news who've lost, you know, many millions of dollars. But sometimes the more heartbreaking stories are the people who call me who lost $40,000 or $50,000 because to them that money was more significant than the millions were to other clients. So I've had many clients call me who have lost $40,000 or $50,000. They had a job that maybe paid double that annually. But that kind of loss is catastrophic. And they were assigned a VIP host who fed them incentives, fed them free bets, all of which had the very predictable outcome of sustaining and growing their addiction.
So what's the plausible deniability from the casinos? Like, if I go to one of these places and I say, you know, I'm 26, you don't care how much I make, you don't care where the money's coming from, like, and I'm losing $20,000 a month, how do they not have a red flag go off? Or if they do, are they just ignoring the red flags?
So it's all of those things. And I have seen a little bit of an evolution since I started doing this back in 2021. So back then the policy was just don't ask any questions and then wipe your hands of it. It's not our fault. You know, we didn't know. There's been a little bit of an evolution, and I don't know that this is better or worse, but it's certainly not good, to where they would ask the gambler if a red flag was raised. They'd say, hey, are you gambling within your means? And of course, I see the expression on your face, and that's exactly what it is. Of course, any addict is going to say whatever they have to continue the addiction.
Yeah.
So they say, yep, I'm fine. And then the casino says, okay, then let's continue. There's been a second evolution with some casinos now where they'll send a list of questions saying like, hey, are you having trouble paying your rent or mortgage? Are you gambling within your means? But again, the gambler knows full well that a wrong answer on one of these questions means they're going to be excluded. And if you're addicted to gambling, you're going to say anything you need to say to continue gambling.
Right.
So you use the term plausible deniability. I mean, that's really what it is it just seems like they're looking for plausible deniability.
Well, anyone that knows me or has seen my content before knows that I think responsible gambling is bullshit. And I'm thinking that this is lumped into the same category. Oh, you know, we asked him, we gave it a try, we did our best kind of thing. So it begs the question, right? This is America. We can do a lot of things here. We have a lot of autonomy of freedom, autonomy of choice. The general public, I don't think that they believe that a gambling addiction is the casino's fault. What's your view? I mean, given that these practices exist, is it 100% on either party that someone develops a gambling problem?
No, absolutely not. And this is a conversation that I have with every judge, every arbitrator, even every client in my very first conversation with them. I say it is never going to be my argument that the casino is 100% responsible. I don't think they are. I think individuals are responsible. And if you've lost so much money that it's, you know, decimated you financially, you've made some bad decisions to get there. But right now, like you say, the perception is too often that it's 100% on the gamblers, and that's not true either. The gamblers make a bad decision, the casinos see it and drag it out, and they make it worse. And I use the analogy of a bartender, someone who serves beer. Let's say someone goes into a bar, has 20 beers, and then injures himself or someone else. The first 5 beers are definitely on the customer. The last 5 beers are definitely on the bartender. All the beers in the middle, is a grayer area, which is fact dependent, which we can talk about. But the idea that it's only the gambler is a complete fallacy. It's not consistent with scientific understanding of gambling addiction or addiction in general.
Right. I feel like, when you look at alcohol in that analogy, taking it, back to like practicality, if someone has X number of beers, then they blow 0.09 and they can't drive a car. We know that's, stop drinking. You're not supposed to be this drunk legally. When it comes to gambling, it's like, oh, gamble responsibly. Well, what does that mean? I mean, have your clients been told gamble responsibly? And if so, like, did they ever try? Like, because I'm imagining the casinos are going to say, oh, it's their fault. All we did was provide a product. It's not our fault. Like, did they actually tell your clients to be careful or to be responsible in a way that was helpful?
Rarely. Oftentimes the casinos rely on the statutory mandated language, 1-800-GAMBLER language. Like, hey, if you have a problem gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLING or 1-800-GAMBLER. The problem with that is no one's calling that number until things have gotten so bad.
Yeah.
And, the casinos, or even you and I, as we're talking about it here, we're talking about it clear-headed, logically, rationally. When you're in the throes of that addiction, that's not how you're thinking. You're vulnerable. And the casinos enticing people who are vulnerable to continue that addiction, that's where that, for me, the line is drawn, is when they are using tactics that they know to be persuasive and manipulative on people who are particularly vulnerable.
Speaking of enticements, I've heard some stories of people that would self-exclude from, say, all casinos in New Jersey. After that point, correct me if I'm wrong, it becomes illegal for that casino to have a direct line of communication to that player based on the rules of gaming enforcement.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Have you seen instances where casinos or VIP hosts still continue to reach out to clients after they've self-excluded?
What I've seen, and this is one of the biggest points of contention between me and the casinos, is that after a period of self-exclusion, whether it's statewide or you could also self-exclude within that particular app also, just for that casino, they continue with the enticements. So if it's a 30-day self-exclusion, on day 31, they continue with the enticements as if, okay, well, you're cured now. When, again, logic, science, anyone who's looking at this objectively understands if you just self-excluded for 30 days, you're probably still pretty vulnerable on day 31.
Right.
But the casinos look at that as, okay, green light, let's go.
Yeah, it's always been my thought, if you ever self-excluded or cooled down for any period of time, you shouldn't be doing it. But that's not what the casinos say. Oh, take a break, man. You'll cool off, you'll come back and it'll be different. Tolerance break.
I agree with you 100%. It's like before you said the responsible gaming model is bullshit. I think the self-exclusion model is similarly nonsense. I mean, anyone who's done any work on addiction understands. I mean, put that in the context of any other addiction. You would never tell an addict of any other compulsion, well, take a 30-day break and then by day 31, you're good to go.
Right. I mean, with drugs, though, theoretically, there could be a tolerance break. You could reach a point where you come back and a little bit hits you harder, but we don't see that with gambling. It's not consistent with gambling. When gamblers come back to gambling, they usually pick up right where they left off. And that's actually a pretty big difference. But gambling trade associations will rely on that as an argument. Oh, well, they're taking time off. They're going to come back with a more clear head, and they're going to be able to take their time and be better. We've covered kind of the basics that casino VIPs are reaching out to clients with different offers, and we're also seeing that they're reaching out when maybe they shouldn't be reaching out. But when they do reach out, you've mentioned that they reach out with these offers, but have you seen anything that's just been like above and beyond disturbing that casino VIP hosts have promised or used as an inducement to a client?
To me, the most insidious inducement are the time-sensitive inducements because it preys on the compulsion. So here's a 20% deposit match if you do it within 48 hours or 72 hours because it preys on that compulsion. It's the customized incentives that I've seen where someone's gambling so much, they say, well, the regular incentives aren't good enough for you. So if you deposit, I mean, and this is a real life example. One of my clients had a customized incentive program where every time he deposited $600,000, they would give him $60,000 back. So a 10% deposit match without any type of verification of funds.
Gambling should never control your life, and with Gamban, it won't. Whether you're struggling to quit gambling or just want to remove the temptations from your life, Gamban is there to block access to all gambling apps and websites, and they'll do it across all your devices. No loopholes, no excuses, just a powerful tool to help you break a bad habit. Take the first step towards recovery today. Download Gamban and make gambling a thing of the past. Learn more at Gamban.com.
It's the free bets that also I think are so devastating to so many people. It's the timing of them. So, no one can resist a free bet. That sounds great, right? Who doesn't love free money?
Yeah.
The problem is so often those free bets come after a period of reckless deposits and losses. And there's a time there where in the ordinary course of things, someone might gamble too much on a weekend, let's say, and feel pretty shitty on Monday and Tuesday. And maybe they delete the app and say, man, I lost too much. I probably should take a rest. But the casinos interfere with that rest by saying, looks like you had a rough weekend. I just put a free $500 bet in your account. Now he's right back at it.
Wow. And in addition to like this idea of being a free bet, I want to talk about one of the wins that you've had in the past that you've influenced. Tell me about your experience with no sweat bets. When I hear a no sweat bet, that sounds pretty good. Just like you're saying, I love free money. I don't believe it's legal to call them that anymore. Why?
Yeah, so that's what started. So I didn't get into that detail when I talked about how I started, but what I was seeing was they were called risk-free bets back in 2018, 2019. And they kind of evolved to no sweat bets. But the idea was your first bet is risk-free or without sweat, which I guess is a little bit of nuance. But the problem is they were full of risk and full of sweat because, we could get into the technical argument first, or second, but primarily any involvement with gambling is a risk, right? There's no riskless involvement with gambling. But the reason that these were particularly misleading is because because they didn't just give you your money back. So risk-free to me, and I think to, again, anyone logically looking at this, you bet $50. You lose, you get your $50 back. That's not what it was. What it was you bet $50, you lose, you get a free $50 bet. And which means now you have to gamble again. Risking. And if you lose the second bet, now you lost. Now you're out. So it's risk mitigated. But that's not so catchy that they don't. Yeah, it's not as catchy as risk-free.
You get two chances, I guess. Is really what it is. And then even after that, you have playthrough, rollover,
which is another completely deceptive tactic. Is the rollover. You see a lot of the casinos advertise, bet $5, get $200 free on your first bet. Again, that sounds amazing. Like, why wouldn't you do that? But then you read the fine print and it has to be done within, sometimes it's a 72-hour period, sometimes it's a week period. And with the playthrough, you're gambling now. You're now being groomed to gamble at such a high rate. So if you bet $5, I think it's fair to say you're a fairly amateur gambler. Now, all of a sudden, you're being groomed to gamble at least $200. I'm not even talking about the playthrough, but at least $200 now over the course of a week. And as the stakes go up, the money that you need to deposit and bet to match that dopamine is going to increase.
Yeah. You've been instantly conditioned to bet 40 times more than you were originally willing to bet.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so that was one of the bigger wins that you've had during your career. One of the initial wins, maybe.
It was the first issue I approached, and it's being litigated now. There was actually another firm, Lovey and Lovey in Chicago, just had a pretty big win on a motion to dismiss on that issue in the District of New Jersey.
Interesting.
Like 2 weeks ago.
It begs the question, like, this doesn't happen often, does it? Like, usually the casinos win in these kinds of things, right?
Forever. The casinos are undefeated. Yeah. I mean, since Atlantic City came online 50 years ago, I mean, the casinos have almost never lost.
We could talk about why that is. I imagine it's the terms and conditions that they equip themselves with, whether, in the casino or online. But, that implies that you never get to discovery. Could you give like a brief explanation of what discovery would be in this context for an audience member that's never been in a legal setting?
Yeah. So discovery in this context would really be to get at the heart of the casino's understanding of addiction generally, and then addiction specific to the client, to that particular addict. So I think there's kind of a 20,000 foot view of it of, okay, generally, what do you know about addiction? How are you trying to prevent it? And then you come and you focus in on, okay, what then did you do here in this situation? Because in every case, every single case I've ever had, and I would argue any case of addiction, there are red flags that the casinos can see. They're tracking and monitoring data on you in real time. They could see every deposit, every bet, every withdrawal or lack thereof for a lot of gambling addicted people. Yeah. They know what's going on. So getting to communications, okay, did the VIP host raise any red flags? And if so, what was the conversation around that? How was it decided internally that this person was okay to gamble at this level despite these red flags?
And so if a case goes to the discovery process, basically both sides, you and then the casinos would have access to all of this information about all the communications they've had with your client and everything that they basically could have seen as a red flag. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then it's in the casino's best interest, if they know that they've done something wrong, to never let a case get to discovery.
If they know they've done something wrong, yeah.
Do you find that casinos settle a lot?
That's not been their position generally. No. And, it kind of goes back to the beginning of this question, which is, well, they're undefeated, so they feel like they can get these cases out of court on a motion to dismiss because right now the law is just lagging behind. So the law that I'm fighting against in these cases is 30-year-old brick and mortar law, which was decided again in the brick and mortar days, which we discussed the differences a few minutes ago, but also the science was very different. I wrote in one of my briefs to the Third Circuit recently, I go into at some length about how the DSM-5 characterized gambling addiction right along with opioid and tobacco and alcohol addiction.
And the DSM-5 is the diagnostics manual that doctors use to determine if someone has an addiction?
Yes, the American Psychiatric Association diagnostic manual. And when the cases that the casinos are using to dismiss these cases back then, and it's going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It was in the same category as pyromania and people who were addicted to shopping. And I'm not qualified to discuss those things, and I don't mean to trivialize them, but the understanding of gambling addiction has evolved tremendously, as it should have, since it was 2013 that it was added to the American Psychiatric DSM alongside those other chemical addictions. But the courts are still 30 years behind. And that can't continue. The dam is going to break, but it hasn't yet.
I don't know if the audience is going to be more shocked to hear that the casinos are doing something predatory or the government moves slow. I don't know which of the two, but it's no shock that the government is looking at outdated laws when talking about something that's rapidly changing. In terms of your direct work with clients, what I want to know is, to the best of your ability that you're able to share, what's the case that you've been most proud of? And what's the case that you've been most disappointed by, in whichever order you want?
Yeah, so I am, not to skirt the question, but I am really proud of every case I've brought because, and I tell this to clients, I can't guarantee you any particular outcome. We don't know what's going to happen. That's true in any case, but in particular, gambling cases. But I can promise you that every case we bring makes change. It chips away at the stranglehold these casinos have over people. The casinos have changed their practices as a result of the cases that I've brought. To be clear, they haven't changed them. They're not perfect. I'm not even sure they're good yet, but they have changed. And I'm proud of every single case for helping to chip away at that. The case I'm most disappointed about is Sam Antar's case, which unfortunately was dismissed in the district court. And that was affirmed by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, because I felt like there was not a fair analysis or a real attempt to understand what I was just saying, which is, hey, we need to look at how gambling and casinos have evolved in the 30 years since these other cases were decided. We're living in a very different world. And the public needs protection, and it should be coming from the courts, but they saw it differently.
So the Sam Antar case, he was suing MGM, correct? Could you give like the basic premise of what the case was about?
Yeah. So Sammy's case was he sued BetMGM. The allegations were that he lost approximately $300,000, and that he was incentivized to do so by his casino VIP host and the VIP program. And in the complaint, we went into great detail about the communications between him and his VIP host. I mean, they were talking constantly. I mean, every day. I mean, it's one of the most awful things about the VIP host relationship with the addicted gambler is oftentimes there's this paradox where the only person who knows what the addicted gambler is going through is the person who's causing the addiction, which is the VIP host, because the addicted gambler feels like they can't talk to anyone else about it. So the big kind of hook in Sammy's case was, in addition to the kind of the ordinary predatory gambling practices, was that in August of, I don't remember the year, but it was August of that year, the casino received a subpoena from the state and federal government for Sam Antar's records because they were performing an investigation. He ultimately went to jail for stealing money with which to gamble. They received a subpoena for his records, so they knew something was up, and they didn't cut him off until January of the following year.
Wait, so for what, 5 months, they knew that their client was being investigated for a financial crime. Did they know that it was tied to gambling?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
That would have been way worse.
That would
it's already bad, but that would have been like, oh my God, you guys. But so they knew something was up financially, and they were just like, here's more credit.
They just kept in. I don't know if they were extending credit, but they kept incentivizing him. So free bets, deposit matches, all of that. They kept as if nothing ever happened. And that's part of my frustration with the court, was that they just didn't even address that.
Wow.
So totally unaddressed.
It's just like, it's mind blowing how obvious it is. Like, to me, I guess maybe I'm biased, right? Because I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction, but I mean, dude, if they got a subpoena about me, I would hope they would stop. But no, they're trying to squeeze as much value as possible. It's my perception.
That's my perception too. I mean, even if it was just negligent, even if maybe, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, even that, in my opinion, is inexcusable. I mean, you have to have some kind of protocol for, hey, one of our gamblers is being investigated by the state and federal governments. Maybe we should, hold off on incentivizing him to keep depositing at these, incredibly high levels. Like I said, the allegation was $300,000 over the course of a relatively short period of time. So there was a lot of money lost during that period.
Wow. What was their defense, the casinos?
Their defense is what it is in every case, which is there is no specific law prohibiting us from doing what we're doing. That's true. And that's why my cases, I have to bring them under the Consumer Fraud Act.
Yeah.
Because they're a business, gamblers are consumers, and they should be protected just like anyone else. If one of the things that drives me crazy in court and in arbitration is that if we were talking about any other service or product, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It would be textbook negligence and textbook consumer fraud. So let's put it in the context for a second of toaster ovens.
Okay.
Let's say you're a toaster oven manufacturer. Okay. You're making toaster ovens that are going to be dangerous to some people. You incentivize someone to buy a toaster oven, and they use it and it damages them. That's textbook negligence.
Yeah.
If you're talking about it in any other context but casinos and gambling, this is it's not even interesting.
Yeah.
We don't even need to have a conversation about it. But for some reason, casinos and gambling have created this veneer of invincibility where they're immune from this stuff.
And I would imagine that the argument comes down to what our friend Les Burnell talks about, that it's because the casinos are in a pact with the government to operate that they're not getting held to the same standards.
That's exactly what it is. And that's something else which is so frustrating, is that, right, the government's not really enthusiastic about curtailing this because that's going to mean the loss of a whole lot of gambling revenue.
Yeah. I mean, when you said that, like, there's no specific law preventing us from doing this, what I was thinking of was like when I used to like bully my little brother and I'd be like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Like, in none of the briefs in that case or anywhere else do you see a morality argument that, hey, what we're doing is okay.
Yeah.
It's not prohibited. You're right. That's exactly what it is. And the easiest thing to do, because the courts, the easiest out for a court is to say, well, the legislature hasn't prohibited it. As soon as they do, we'll enforce it. The easiest thing to do is for the legislature to enact these things. But for the reasons that you say and Les Burnell says, they don't want to do it. And I think it's easy to say, well, this is all kind of new and they're still trying to figure it out. But you look at what's going on in Europe and a lot of these protections that we're talking about that, me or you or Les dream about or already implemented in the UK and Ireland and other countries in Europe. It's not like we didn't have that model before we got started. But it seems like our legislators and the casinos obviously are very happy to ignore that.
Yeah, we like making our own mistakes in America. We don't want to learn from other people's.
Yeah.
It's the American way, man. So I had a couple more questions for you. The first being that we've been talking about the impact on the gambler. We've been talking about what can happen when you're extended lines of credits, inducements, and you're kind of led down this path that incentivizes you to get further addicted to gambling. But a gambling addiction doesn't just impact the gambler. It's said that for every person with a gambling addiction, between 6 to 10 people on average are also directly impacted from that addiction. In your experience, has there been fallout from families, friends, loved ones? And, have you experienced that on a personal level, just like seeing the families of the clients in person?
Every single addiction I've seen has damaged people other than the gambler. Every single one. I mean, when you're talking about gambling at the levels that I've seen and that you've seen, when you're talking about addiction level, the gambler doesn't stop until something really bad happens, until something pretty catastrophic happens. And that I've never seen a situation where it has not impacted at a minimum the spouse and children of my clients, where money that the spouse thought was there for college or to buy a new house or to retire was lost without the spouse knowing about it. The children are impacted. Older children understand what's going on, younger don't, but they're still impacted just the same. I've seen so many businesses impacted, whether it's by theft, which is, I've seen this statistic that 60% of addicted gamblers will steal money with which to gamble at some point during their addiction. But I come across it all the time where someone has stolen money or gotten money through some type of deception in order to gamble. So it impacts the businesses they work for. And that's just talking about direct impact. I mean, we're not even getting into the indirect impact of all of the legitimate businesses that this money could be going to. I mean, you think about all the money that's lost is lost. It's gone. All that money could have been going back into the community, whether it's restaurants, small businesses, Or if you're talking about investments, I mean, smarter, anything's a smarter investment, but, money is not being now invested into 401ks and things like that, because extra money is now more and more being funneled into gambling losses instead.
Oh, but Matt, I mean, think about all the jobs that these casinos are creating, right? Like, isn't that a justification? The money has to go somewhere, right?
That's the pitch, right? Is that these casinos come into a state and they create jobs, but again, it's nonsense. The jobs are remote. Many of them are not even within the state, and they're not sustainable jobs. I mean, you're essentially a drug pusher. It's not the type of job that someone's going to spend a career at.
And in addition, I believe that out of all of the professional groups that exist, the group with the highest rates of gambling addiction are casino employees.
Interesting. I've never heard that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
The money's going somewhere. It's just not going to anything good, we'll say.
Right. And I mean, you think about all the groups who are fighting for a piece of the gambling pie. Yeah. I mean, that's where your money's going. It's going to television stations, sports leagues, the casinos themselves, the government. I mean, all entities that I wouldn't donate $100 to, but that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, imagine the NFL asking for $100 donations so they can get the best red zone coverage. Anyway, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There's been some big wins along the way, and I know we can't dive into dollar amounts, but can you tell me about maybe a more recent experience of a positive outcome you've gotten for a client?
So again, I mean, I'll say positive outcomes. I feel like every case is a positive outcome because we are able to take steps to make gambling safer, not safe. And I will not use the RG word. But we're making things safe every single time we file a lawsuit or an arbitration, and we take these things out of the darkness and into the light. I mean, I feel the same way about being here with you today or any of the television shows I do. I feel like every single time we take this out of the shadows and bring it into the light, it's a success because that's how this is going to change.
Man, if I didn't know that you were already a mayor, I would tell you to get into politics because I don't even remember what my question was. So I want to talk to you one more thing. Looking forward, you're going to continue the work that you're doing. Unfortunately, for better or for worse, you're going to end up having a lot more clients. What are your hopes and fears for what's to come next?
I'm going to focus on my hopes, okay. Just so we could wrap this up with something positive. There have been changes in public perception, and those changes in public perception have begun to change legislative perception. When I filed, so the Sam Antar case was the first case I filed, and I would receive a few phone calls from newspapers asking me to talk about the case. And, I'd be all excited about it. Like, that's great. Like there's an entity, someone who wants to understand this and kind of explain to people what we're doing and what we're talking about. And then I would read the article and it was always awful. Like, it was pointing the finger at him. Like, why didn't he have more self-control? Why doesn't he have willpower? He's the weak one. And now he's looking for someone to blame. Over time, I'd say beginning with around like the Super Bowl last year, something changed where every time I file a suit now, I have 25 media outlets who want to talk about this, but in a sophisticated, intelligent way and understand the power the casinos have and their misuse of that power and legitimately want to help move this forward. So, listen, I don't think we get there in a year, 2 years, but it's coming. It's the public and the legislature is beginning to understand that this is a huge problem. And I do feel good that we're getting closer to a solution that's going to prevent a lot of these issues that we've been seeing for the last 8 years now.
What would your ideal solution entail? Is it, going after the VIP hosts, advertising, all of it? Like, what would it look like?
Yeah. So if I had my wish list.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, VIP hosts, the whole VIP program has to be changed. it should be restricted. And this is what's done in the UK. It's restricted to a very small number of people. And those people are very seriously vetted. And I'm talking about, producing whatever the equivalent is to a W-2 or a K-1 or like real documentation to support the levels at which they're gambling. In my opinion, if you want to have a VIP host who's giving people real-time high-level incentives, you have to know where that income is coming from. You have to know that it's real. Deposit limits are something that I'd love to see, so that if people are going to be addicted to gambling. There's nothing you can do about that. But let's make it so that every outcome is not so catastrophic. So if the deposit limits are lower, now there's more time to catch it before it becomes a complete financial disaster.
What's the incentive to do any of that? Like being honest, like if the government is making money, if the casinos are making money, where does the incentive come from?
The incentive has to come, I think, from a public outcry. I think we have to, and I hate talking about lives in this way, but I think there has to be a tipping point where so many lives have been affected that the government can't just ignore the consequences of gambling. And I think that's what we saw with the opioid addiction. It was the same thing. The government, or politicians in particular, were receiving so much money from the pharmaceutical companies. They had no incentive to stop it or slow it down. But there came a tipping point where, okay, this has gotten so bad, it can't be ignored. And I hate to think that we have to wait for that, but to your point, I don't know what the government's incentive is. They're making so much money. I don't know what the casino's incentive is. They're making so much money. Everyone's making so much money on it. It's hard to see how anyone with the ability to do it is going to pull the plug voluntarily.
Yeah. So it has to come from the accumulation of people experiencing negatives or seeing other people experience negatives, which is part of the hope of what I'm doing here and what I'm planning next for myself professionally is let's get as many people as possible to understand the truth. Do you think if people understood the truth about casino VIP programs, about what the advertising does, that it would change their perception?
100%. I don't think I've ever spoken to someone about VIP hosts and about gambling addiction and what's going on today in 2025, who at the end of the conversation was not disgusted. I think that the people who don't understand it are people who have just not been exposed to it. So I think the more people who hear the stories of what gambling really is and not just what you see on TV commercials and billboards, because that looks fun as hell, right? I'll do that all day.
Yeah.
It's the people who have not been exposed to it, what gambling really is, that I think slowly but surely their minds need to be changed, and they are. I do think it's coming, and it really is through people like you just bringing this bullshit into the light that is going to make the change that needs to happen.
I think actually a great example is my mom. So my mom and dad were casual gamblers. We would go to Atlantic City. That's where all the restaurants are in Atlantic City, right? Yep. So we would go to Brigantine Beach, and then we'd go to Atlantic City for dinner, and they'd gamble a little bit here and there. But following me, sharing my story, coming out online about everything, they are so appalled by gambling advertising. It's almost hilarious. The other day, my mom calls me and she goes, "Did you see this bullshit ad that FanDuel put out?" And I was like, "No, what was it?" And it was like this, they're driving down a highway and they're chanting something about being a thrillionaire. They're like, yeah. I watched it once. They're on little bikes and they're riding. It's a giant tandem bike going into a portal, which I imagine is supposed to represent the casino itself. And my mom's like, they put a Colt TV they put a Colt commercial on TV. And I was like, yeah, I kind of see it. She's like, I want them gone. I want everything off. And I'm like, yeah, I think you're taking it more seriously than I am at this point. But it's like seeing someone impacted by it changes your perception.
You want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
My kids are the same way.
Yeah.
So my kids, they live in my house. They understand what I do, and they're as disgusted as your mom is.
Yeah.
So I have my 16-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 12-year-old. Same thing. They are on high alert for bullshit casino ads.
Yeah. If you take them to a basketball game or something, they'd probably boo. Do they boo when they see the ad?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what my friends do. They're like, oh, dude, this is terrible. Boo, boo. And everyone's like, why is he booing the Parks Casino dice at halftime? So then I guess if we're talking about that, like that my mom hates it, your kids hate it at this point, like what is it that will make someone like mobilized towards change? What changes people's perception of the gambling industry?
Yes, because like you, I mean, I deal with skeptical people all the time who tell me, get lost. It's not the casino's fault. People should have known better. For me, the distinction, what people don't understand, people who are not in this world, what they don't understand is the active participation in the addiction that the casinos take. So the law is, and I'll bring this back to the law. The law is, as it stands now, and I'm not advocating that this should continue to be the law, but the law is that a casino has no obligation to stop a gambler from harming themselves. So if they open their doors to an addicted gambler and the gambler goes and loses too much money, that's on the gambler. And that's the law that the casinos use to try to defeat cases like mine. What I explain to people who have not been exposed to this is, if that's all the casinos were doing, I don't know that I'd be doing this kind of work. I don't know that I would have gotten involved. The issue is that the casinos are not merely opening their doors to addicted gamblers, doors meaning brick and mortar or digital. They're actively incentivizing people to gamble more and more. They're actively incentivizing people who they know or should know have a problem to gamble more and more. And that's what turns the conversations for me. That's what's turned conversations with people for me. When I explain to them, it's not that I'm complaining that they just happened to be there and someone walked in and did the wrong thing. Right. It's that they are taking an active role in starting the addiction, sustaining the addiction, and growing the addiction. And that's what has to stop.
So naturally, I guess the answer is in like the product itself, right? Like if I go into the Philly Soft Pretzel Factory down the road and I go in there and I eat 200 pretzels and I throw up, it's not their fault, right? But if because they wanted to sell pretzels, right? Like naturally it's a product that shouldn't be that harmful. It depends who you ask, I guess. But if I go into a casino and I place 200 bets, and after bet 100, it becomes very obvious that I shouldn't be making these bets. Like, that's just a different product, isn't it?
It's a different product, yes, with a different effect for sure. And I also think the big difference is that, if you go to a Philly pretzel and you get 200 pretzels and you get sick and throw up, you're not going to do the same thing the next day.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, they're good pretzels.
They are.
The issue with the casino is that if you go in, again, brick and mortar or digitally, and make 200 bets and you're sick to your stomach the next day that you did it and you want to take a rest, you're not able to do that because the casino is going to, your VIP host is going to send you a text message saying, hey, I just put it free $5,000 in your account, and start the addiction all over again. It doesn't allow for that natural period of introspection.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just a totally different product. And once again, going back to our friend Lesper now, it's like, when you go to the pretzel factory, you have the intention that you're going to pay money and you're going to get a pretzel. When you go to a casino, you have the intention that you're going to pay money with the chance to win more money, but you're actually not supposed to win more money, so you lose money. And it's like, going back to your point on consumer fraud, would you say that would you take his extreme opinion that, I think it's an extreme opinion, that every single bet is a form of consumer fraud? It
is because of the way it's presently treated. I mean, I understand what he's saying, and he is right. He is right on a level, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I am 100 for 100 in eating a pretzel every time I've gone to Philly Pretzel Factory. Every single time it's a success.
Yeah.
Going to a casino, right? They entice you to come in with the promise of winning. That's what happens infrequently. That's not what happens most often. That's what happens least often.
Like
so
5 out of 100 times.
Right. So the promise itself is manipulative, which gets to something that I would love to see in advertising. I think this was your idea. I feel like you put this in my head a long time ago. The idea of, like you have with financial instruments, talking about that you could lose money You could make money, but you could also lose money. So talking about the potential negative ramifications, or the pharmaceutical industry, where you can talk about all the benefits of a drug, but before that commercial's over, you also have to talk about all the potential side effects. I would love to see that in casino advertising as well. Like, let's just be honest about what the product is.
Yeah.
And some people will still want to do it, and that's fine. If you perceive this to be entertainment and you're able to, and you're built to do it in a way that, you could walk away from it at the end of the night and everything's okay, everything goes back to normal, then great. You could spend your entertainment money at a casino, but let's be honest about what we're talking about. And that type of honesty is something that the casinos have fought so hard against. I mean, the whole responsible gaming model is built on, let's not say this is what it is.
Yeah, call us if you have a problem.
Right. And don't even call it gambling, by the way.
Yeah, it's gaming. It's fun. You just hatched a whole new video idea in my head, because I thought of a pharmaceutical ad where they're standing around like a bonfire or something, dancing in a circle and happy, and it's listing off that they're going to get colon cancer from their there's a bunch of words they use that are well beyond my understanding, but every single pharmaceutical commercial, it's like something crazy happy going on screen, and all these side effects getting listed. I'm going to make that for gambling. So I remember this video when I make that in a couple of weeks, and it's just like a gambling ad as normal, but I put all the side effects on top of it.
I love that. And we're talking about it like this is something so radical, but it's really not.
It's a normal thing.
We have the blueprint for it in the pharmaceutical industry, in the tobacco industry, in the alcohol industry. But again, for some reason, you can't do that with gambling.
Jeez. I did think of one more thing I wanted to ask you real quick. If someone's watching this video, and I don't want this to be an ad for just hey, sign up with Matt Litt so that I can help you to take legal action against a casino. What does a legitimate case need to have for someone to take it to a lawyer to then take it to a court against a casino?
So in my opinion, I'll tell you what I look for when I'm looking for a case. When I'm looking to decide whether or not I'm going to take a case, I always ask for the transaction history, and I'm looking for red flags. I'm putting myself into the shoes of the casino. So if I'm a casino employee looking at this in real time, or let's say they're looking at it every week. If I'm looking at this, am I seeing what an objective person would see as red flags? So am I seeing unexplained exponential growth in deposits? Let's say someone who was depositing, I don't like putting numbers on it, but just by way of an example, someone who was depositing $500 a month, all of a sudden depositing $5,000 a month, and then $10,000, and $50,000. Am I seeing just real high numbers that should raise red flags? And then what I'm also asking a potential client for is to show me the communications with a casino. So what I'm trying to do then is match the incentives with the red flags and growth in deposits.
Got it.
And when I see those two things intersect, that's when I get really enthusiastic about a case. So if someone is, on their own gambling a small amount, maybe they raise it up a little bit, and that catches the attention of the casino. Now they're assigned a VIP host. The deposits grow real way. And I'm talking about, I've seen growth of 100, 200, 500% without questions asked. If we could trace that type of artificial growth to incentives from a VIP program or a VIP host, that's what I'm looking for.
Got it. Are you actively accepting cases now?
I am.
All right. So this is not a sponsored ad. This is not a paid ad, but Matt's information is going to be in the description of this video. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to hear some stories that bring to life the cases that Matt has worked on, though they're not his clients, check out this set of videos next. And let's keep getting better together, one day at a time.